Hello, I'm back. Okay, I said I might come back on. Well, what? Don't I look 1970s right now? Oh, my lord, my lord. It's like, okay, it's just the way it's like kind of flat to my head and the. Anyway, um, I rescheduled my next plasma donation for Friday. So that somehow gave me a lift so I could come back on because honestly, the day after I donate plasma, I am like exhausted. I'm so tired. And I couldn't hack the idea of going in the morning. I'm like, I don't have it. I don't have it in me. So now I'm going on Friday. So that's better. Um, I tried to do a workout today. I literally just started. I was like, and a one. And then a child found me and said, I'm hungry. I was like, all right. So I stopped. And then, well, I stopped. Oh, okay. Sorry, my mother's texting me. I don't know if any of you are on Facebook. I'm not on Facebook, but I was thinking, what if we started like a book club Facebook chat? You know, we could all meet, we could all be like, "Good morning." I don't know. It could be a nice part of the day, but I don't know. You tell me what you think. The only thing I'm afraid of is like I don't want anyone on there like talking politics or, religion in the sense, you know what I mean? In the sense that it's like combative and then people start fighting. If people start fighting, I will shut it down. I just was thinking it would be nice to have like a nice little space to get on there and be like, hey everybody, good morning. But I'm worried because I'm not like a social media gal and it seems like people are always arguing on social media and so my mother said she's glad that I rescheduled my plasma appointment. Because the last time I went, like with just a day in between, I just squeaked through. They're like, you have just enough proteins in your blood to donate, but like you should probably wait a few more days. So, um, has anyone given any thought about me ordering a hot pink dress? Anyone? You should let me know. Hold on, let me check my bank account. That might decide it. I don't have to order it today. I'm checking on behalf of something else. My lord, it's so expensive to do laundry in an apartment building. So my apartment doesn't have laundry facilities in it because when I moved in, it's like eons ago now, but they gave me the option. They're like, "Do you want us to go in and renovate it or do you want us to leave it?" Because if they renovated it, the rent was going to go up. And I'm like, "Leave it. It's fine. It's fine as it is." So that meant that they didn't put washer and dryer in. But I mean, it was different then. That was like 10 years ago, you know? Because my thing was, I don't want to be paying, I'm going to pay for that renovation 100 times over, right? Because if you put in new countertops and you put in a washer and a dryer, well, my rent is going up every month regardless, and that's going to be paid for 100 times, right? So that's why I said no. But boy, anyway, it's expensive. I pay $5.50 to wash and dry. Like, so it's $2.50 to wash, it's $3 to dry. The only thing that saves me is that they're really big dryers, so you can usually fit 2 loads in one dryer. But it just irks me. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna buy a clothes horse, I think, on Friday. I'm gonna order a clothes horse. I mean, I was thinking of getting one of those portable washers that you can just like hook up to your sink. The only thing is, I don't think you can really do bedding. I'm just thinking about it because I'm just getting a little tired of spending money on that. So maybe I'll get a clothes horse and I'll get a portable washer. All right. I just have like half a cup of coffee, not a full cup. I was like, I want a little something, but just a little. All right. Oh my gosh. I probably need to eat something more because I'm just so tired. Must be the plasma. Yeah, I can't think of anything else. Let me know if you think that it would be fun to go on Facebook and have like a Facebook group. I don't know of anywhere else to put a group. I don't want to go on Instagram. I don't want to go on any platform where I can just start mindlessly scrolling. I wish there was a place. I don't know. I just wish there was a place. Oh, wait. I think there might be a community page on YouTube. Like I think let me go and I'll have to go and look because I think that there's a an option that it allows you to set it so that community members, subscribers can go on and comment, and so maybe we should just do that. I don't know. All right, that's just a thought. All right, so we were reading earlier about, oh, also thank you, Beverly, for commenting. There's like, you know who you are. You comment all the time. And if one of you stops commenting, I get worried. I'm like, uh-oh, what's going on? Is everyone all right? So thank you, Beverly. I'm trying to think of anything else. Obviously nothing's that new because I was just here. Well, I guess maybe I'll just give you a little update on the big sad that I've been going through. So it's okay. So, well, how about I give you a story time? All right, this is a wild story. And my ADHD is awful, but I'm going to try to bring it back around. Let me put my bobby pin back in my book. I've been using it as a bookmark. Okay. So, a long time ago, once upon a time, when I was but a little child, there was this guy who would hang out. He was like 19, okay? He was 10 years older than me. And my dad's a pastor, and he was in seminary, okay? So he'd hang out with my dad, and he thought my dad was so cool. And I mean, he had nothing to do with me. I had nothing to do with him. But I just remember him like being around, and he was always like hanging out with the teenagers, and he was cool, you know? So then he's grown up and married, and then I grow up and I get married, and then we both end up we both have children, and we are we were living in the same area by chance and ran into each other a few times. We both like had spouses, and it was just like, oh, hello, like, how are you? You know, great. Your kids look great, you know, all that kind of thing. Anyway, so about, I don't know, if it's like a year or two after my divorce, and my best friend, like we all grew up together, she calls me and she's like, you know who you need to add on Facebook. Now, this is back in the day that I was on Facebook. I'm not anymore. You need to add, should I just say his name? No, I shouldn't. Let's think of a name. We'll call him Tom. Okay. You need to add Tom on Facebook. And I'm like, why? And she's like, well, he's also divorced, and he also has children, and he's your type. He's tall, dark, and handsome. And I was like, oh, okay. So I did. And then he like immediately started talking to me, and we were like talking. And then, you know, so we had a lot in common by that point because, you know, as you get older, the age gap, like it narrows, right? So we both have children. We're both divorced. We both come from the same background, and, you know, all this stuff. So he knows my family. So we start talking and then we start dating. And then, well, it was long distance. Okay. So in my naivete, I really thought, oh my gosh, this is the man that I am going to marry. Like this, it's all going to work out because we both, we both have children and we both come from the same background. And it's very difficult to get divorced in this background. And, you know, he loves my dad. He knows my family. And wow, it's just going to be so easy. Huh. Well, we had taken a little break. There were just a plethora of reasons, but um, his parents live in my province, and the plan was that he was going to come home in August, and we were going to have like a big sit down and talk about everything and find our way to move forward with our relationship. Okay. So I wasn't dating anyone because he had said, like, we're not done. We're just on hold so that we can figure out how to do all this, because it was just being long distance was just getting too hairy canary. Anyway, so on Canada Day weekend, which was the weekend before he was supposed to come down, I get a call from my friend, the one who had told me that I needed to add Tom on Facebook, okay? And she says, honey, have you heard from Tom? Well, first she was just like, hi, how are you doing? I'm like, hey, yeah, everything's great, blah, 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 blah. Just like yapping along. And she says, okay, honey, have you heard from Tom? And I'm like, no, actually, like I've been trying to call him and text him, but I haven't gotten anything back. And she says, honey, I think he died. And I was like, what? And anyway, long story short, I was in shock. Well, it didn't end there. So what had happened, he had drowned. Anyway, saving someone. Now, that someone turned out to be his fiance. And I didn't find that out until I was standing in line at his memorial service to go hug his mother. Okay? So he had his fiance, he had another fiance, and he had me, and he had like 2 other girlfriends. Well, let's just say the mourning period stopped. As horrible as that sounds. It was like, well, but my point being, it was so wild. It was just crazy. But my point being that before I knew that he had so many women, when he passed, it felt like a brick wall had come down in front of my future. It felt like I was just standing at a wall and there was nothing there and I couldn't get through. That's how, in my mind, like that's what I saw. It's just that I was standing in front of a stone wall and I couldn't, where there had been a life, there was no longer life. Where there had been future, there was no longer future. And it was the most horrible feeling to feel like everything you expected was just removed and there was no way to see ahead. It was gone, you know? Now, obviously this is different because it's a breakup. It's not a death. But sometimes breakups can feel like that, like a divorce can feel like that there's just nothing beyond that. Everything is over. But I don't feel like that. And I haven't felt like that with this breakup. I hate to call it a breakup because I think a breakup is a conversation, and being blocked, it's like I don't even want to give it the respect of calling it a breakup. Um, I don't feel like that with this situation. I feel like there is life ahead. I'm just going to slowly get there. But I am thinking about the future. I am thinking about vacations I want to take with my family. I am thinking about, what I want to do with my money. I am thinking about the clothes I want to wear, the clothes I want to buy, things like that, the places that I want to go, the food that I want to cook. So, like when Tom died, um, it was all gone. It was like nothing existed, nothing mattered. And like I said, sometimes after like a divorce or at the end of a relationship, you can feel like that too. But I don't feel like that. So I feel like there's a lot of hope for me. And I don't know why I told you that. Maybe that was just an update to tell you how I'm doing. I do have moments of very intense sadness, of very intense hurt. Um, but that's okay. And I know that he will probably reach out to me someday, but I just keep telling God, like, not yet, not yet. Like, please just hold him back because I need to be strong enough. Because I mean, I wouldn't, at this moment, I wouldn't be like, yes, come on back. But I feel like there's enough care left in me that I hesitate to think that I would be strong enough to not be talked into it, you know? So I need him to wait long enough that I absolutely have no reservations to just be like, no, no regrets, no sadness, no nothing, just no, and I'm getting there day by day by day. Yeah, so that is my update. But now back to the hot pink dress. Let's bring it all back. Should I buy a hot pink dress? And I should probably do a workout after this because I really said that I was going to start, and but part of me is like, I have to get groceries on Friday when I get paid. So I'm like, why don't I wait until Friday when I get paid and I can get some good groceries, and then I can start everything all at once. Just start like with a clean slate. I know that's just me probably being lazy. Oh, I was just so tired. I could haul out the treadmill. Oh, I could haul it out and go for a walk. That wouldn't hurt me any. I'll think about it. I'm honestly so tired when I donate plasma that even the thought of going on the treadmill is like, must I? All right, let's get back and finish this chapter about Jackie meeting Aristotle and not meeting, marrying, and Kathy meeting Seamus. Okay. Fewer than 24 hours later, I was wearing my new coat as I stepped off the plane. Mr. Onassis owned the entire airline in Athens. He was waiting there on the tarmac to greet his bride, and I noticed him nervously fingering the blue worry beads he had clutched in his hand. A helicopter was waiting for us, and we climbed inside. John was beyond excited, checking out the instrument panels and asking a million questions. Madame and Caroline both seemed cool as cucumbers as we lifted straight up in the air, but I was terrified. The chopper didn't feel anywhere near as solid and steady as an airplane, and when I heard that we were headed for Mr. O's private yacht, I assumed we were going to land in the water. What if the waves toppled the helicopter over? Or we landed too hard and started to sink? I wasn't a strong swimmer. I didn't voice my fears aloud, but the kids could tell I was nervous and kept telling me there was nothing to worry about. Don't be afraid, Kat. We're not going to land in the water. We're landing on the boat, John reassured me. There's a big space on the deck. I wasn't convinced that would prove any less perilous, but everyone else on board seemed to be enjoying the ride and the view of the turquoise Ionian Sea sparkling beneath us, so I did my best to mimic their devil-may-care nonchalance. Sure enough, as Mr. O's private island of Scorpios came into sight, with Christina bobbing gently offshore, the pilot lined us up over the deck of the super yacht and expertly set us down. The yacht staff was waiting to greet us in their crisp white uniforms. The paparazzi and international press were waiting too, surrounding the Christina in an armada of small boats they had chartered from fishermen and yacht clubs on nearby Greek islands. Madame's big secret was definitely out of the bag. If it surprised her at all, she didn't show it. Scorpios looked like a page torn out of an old-world fairy tale, with servant women in long black dresses and headscarves busy sweeping and scrubbing the stoops of low-slung little pastel dwellings that I took to be housing for the help. And the help, so swift and silent they were almost invisible, seemed able to anticipate Onassis' every move and every wish, whether up at his hilltop villa on the island or down on the gleaming decks of the Christina. No one was ever idle. I never even spotted them taking a break or chatting with one another when Onassis was out. When I went to unpack Madame's bags, one of the Greek girls from the Christina was already finishing the task and wanted to come unpack mine as well. I was given a private guest house where the sound of the sea lapping the shore crooned me to sleep beneath linens cool and soft as a mother's hand. I was moved the next day to private quarters on the Christina, across from John's and Caroline's rooms. There was a little porthole above my bed where I could see the water slapping and bubbling against the glass. I'm sleeping underwater, I anxiously realized. Before the wedding, the kids and I killed time exploring the huge boat. It was like having a cruise ship to ourselves. There was a swimming pool, whose colorful mosaic floor would rise with the push of a button and turn into a dance floor, and a dining room with a long banquet table where the likes of Frank Sinatra, Winston Churchill, and Marilyn Monroe had been entertained. Grace Kelly and Prince Rainier had held their wedding reception on board. Had Princess Grace lain on one of the same plush white beach towels emblazoned with the big red O that I did while lounging in the sun? Did Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton sip cocktails at the full bar on the leathery stools, made, or so the crew claimed, from the foreskin of whale penises? Gross. The wedding took place Sunday afternoon. It was a gray and drizzly day with a chilly wind off the sea. No trace of the azure skies and balmy sunshine we'd enjoyed since arriving. The Greeks were still all smiles, though, insisting that rain on a wedding day was good luck. That's true. I helped the children dress. They were being given the roles that pages usually got in Greek Orthodox ceremonies, each carrying a 6-foot-tall candle in the wedding procession. Madame had selected a breathtaking ivory Valentino dress from her closet for the occasion. The skirt skimmed her knees in delicate accordion pleats, and the top was sheathed in beige lace. The dress had long sleeves and a high collar, and she complemented the demure look by sweeping her hair back off her face and tying it in a satin ribbon, the way Caroline wore hers. I didn't get to watch the ceremony. There were only 40 guests in all, and they barely fit inside the tiny chapel on Scorpios. But I waited outside with the Secret Service men. A few reporters were allowed to squeeze in at the last minute to record the details, and they reported that both bride and groom wore crowns of orange blossoms on their heads, their hands joined together loosely by a long ribbon as a symbol of their union. When the newlyweds came out of the chapel, everyone tossed rice and sugared almonds at them, the first for luck, the latter for fertility. The wedding party piled into golf carts. Caroline had to sit on her mother's lap and zip down to the dock to board the Christina for dinner and the reception. Everything was lavish, but at the same time small and low-key. The international press treated it like a royal wedding, though, and whipped itself into a frenzy that never did let up after that. By the time she returned from her honeymoon cruising the Greek Isles, Jackie Kennedy had become Jackie O. The difference was apparent right off the bat at 1040, which was now just one of half a dozen homes Mr. and Mrs. bounced between. Madame frequently jetted between New York and Athens. There was a grand apartment in Paris, too, but Mr. Onassis went there alone more often than not. Sometimes they would all board his private jet to meet the Christina in Puerto Rico for a weekend cruise around the Caribbean with the kids. The Kennedy compound on the Cape and Madame's beloved horse country retreat in Peapack were also still in the mix, though Onassis couldn't stand the country life and avoided the whole equestrian scene like the plague. For John and Caroline, 1040 remained home base until they were old enough for boarding school. But there were longer stretches of time now when their mother wasn't there, and it was just us staff alone with the kids. She called to talk to them every night when she was away, checking up on their schoolwork and activities. But her absences pretty much pinned me to 10:40 around the clock. She'd promised me she was getting closer to hiring a new governess. We'd just have to make do until then. One time while Madam was abroad, John fell sick with a bad case of bronchitis, and arrangements were made for a private nurse to come stay with him, a middle-aged Irishwoman who had won the family's trust by caring for Grandma Rose after her second facelift. Phyllis was sweet and attentive to John, telling him all about her own little boy named Robert, and what good friends they could be. After John got better, she'd call and chat me up, wanting to know how John was doing, angling for a visit. I found her too pushy for my own liking, but she managed to convince Nancy Tuckerman to let her take John to his show with her son. They picked him up in a hired town car with John's Secret Service detail following. The next day, I asked John how he'd liked the other boy. It turned out that Robert was years younger than John, barely a kindergartner. He kept saying the wrong thing at the restaurant, and his mother would get mad at him, John said. When the nurse called again to suggest she bring Robert over to play, she was politely but firmly discouraged. Whenever Madam and Onassis alighted at 10:40 for a while, the household was thrown into utter chaos. It was like a different weather front moving in, having a man in residence. Once, when we were both waiting for the elevator and the doors slid open, I waited for Mr. Onassis to enter first. "After you," he said. I was embarrassed and felt it would be out of place. "Oh, no, you first," I insisted, thinking it was polite. The doors were about to close, so Onassis heaved an exasperated sigh and just gave me a little shove. Even poor Shannon got his nose out of joint with the New World Order. Onassis had given Caroline a white Pekingese puppy she named Daisy, and neither Shannon nor I could stand the nippy little thing. John's gift had been a red sailboat kept up at the Cape. The only bright spot amid all the upheaval was the entourage of extra help Onassis brought with him from the Christina staff, including his talented chef. Poor Anne-Marie had gotten herself fired the previous spring after chattering to a gossip columnist about some plan to write a cookbook with her recipes. It somehow got twisted around to rumors of the young German cook planning an insider's juicy tell-all about Madame, and Mrs. Tuckerman brought down the axe with lightning speed. What Anne-Marie had said didn't really matter in the end anyway. The fact that she had broken the sacred trust and said anything at all was what did her in. She was terribly distraught and wrote a letter of apology to Madame, but that was the end of Anne-Marie and the Kennedys. She landed on her feet, though, setting up a cooking school and catering business from her kitchen at home, where I dropped by to visit her once or twice on the sly. It was bad enough to lose my favorite coworker, but her replacement made it all the worse. That was when Bea entered the picture. She was as dour as Anne-Marie was bubbly. Mr. Onassis followed European time and custom, even when in New York, which meant he never wanted dinner served until 9 or 10 at night. Bea whined on and on about having to stay up working so late. She was more of a cook than a chef anyway, so it felt like more of a rescue mission than an invasion when Onassis resolved the problem by bringing in some of the Christina's kitchen crew. They made everything easier. Onassis' upside-down days meant sleepless nights for the rest of the household. We could hear him at 2 and 3 in the morning shouting in Greek as he ran his businesses by phone, with people who were just getting to work and starting their days half a world away. I rarely saw his gray head on the pillow next to hers when I went in to awaken Madame each morning. Onassis usually slept in the guest room that adjoined her bedroom, connected by the master bathroom. Madame didn't try to synchronize her internal clock to that of her night owl mate. She would still be up as usual by 8 to go jogging, and as the hours ticked by, she would eventually go rouse her sleeping husband to let him know she was heading out and make plans to meet up for a late lunch. Mr. Onassis would go to work at his airline's offices in Midtown Manhattan and not get home until 8:30 or so. When they stayed in, Madame's evenings were now spent having cocktails with him in the living room. The works of art she used to love to regard in different rooms, or at different heights, in fresh light or paired with something new, were all left untouched where she had last hung them. I had to wonder if she had imagined Onassis doing that with her, or if she missed the comforting routine. It looked like they were living parallel, but separate lives. They didn't seem madly in love to me, but maybe I was just too new at it myself to understand. Seamus and I had only been dating for 3 months, but I could feel that our relationship was heading somewhere serious already. We were at my apartment one night when he finally summoned the courage to ask me point blank who it was I worked for and what I did. Kennedy's, I answered. I pointed with a tin cup. A tin cup? Why would I say that? I pointed with the tip of my chin to the small frame photograph I kept on a little table. It was Madam and John on horseback in Ireland. A relative had sent it to me after our summer there. You mean Jackie Kennedy? Seamus asked. I nodded. Seamus laughed. What's so funny? I said. I'm just glad you're not, a working girl. I had to laugh too. I could hardly be insulted when I'd given him so much reason to jump to that conclusion. The men in sunglasses and dark suits with guns beneath their jackets who would appear from nowhere to drive me off in their black cars. This little apartment I only slept in every Thursday. All the last-minute cancellations and unexplained absences, like me telling him I had to go abroad for my job for 3 weeks without notice. Would it have sounded any better if I had come home and said that I was away on a Greek private island and luxury yacht? To my relief, Seamus didn't pounce on the truth the way Pat had, digging like a little terrier crazy for a juicy bone. Instead, he backed right off the whole subject of my shadow life with Jackie O. He endeared himself to me even more when he called me one Saturday to ask if he could bring his 3-year-old niece on our date that day. His sister had a wedding to attend, and her babysitter was a no-show. We met at a diner for ice cream, and I was even more charmed when I saw what a sweet relationship Seamus had with little Tara, entertaining her with funny stories and coloring with her as we chatted. Seamus may have been intimidating when it came to size and muscle, but he was a genuinely kind and gentle man. What a great father he'll make someday, I thought. It wasn't all smooth sailing, though. I was ready to kick him to the curb when he called me one evening to cancel plans to go to one of the Irish dances, claiming he had an infected tooth and his jaw was all swollen and throbbing. Some friends invited me to join them instead, and as I was dancing with one of the guys, who should I spot across the floor dancing with another girl but Seamus McKeon himself? He saw me too and caught up with me as the song ended. He'd taken an aspirin or put some whiskey on the tooth, and his jaw had healed right up. Or so he claimed. Don't touch me, I snapped, shrugging his hand off my shoulder. The person who brought me will be the one to take me home, I added. I was furious. Let him think there was competition. It would serve him right. He called me later to apologize again, and I realized that all I wanted was to teach him a lesson, not lose him. We both knew our single days were over, and I was sure Seamus wouldn't be testing it again. That summer he followed me to the Cape, renting a room in a boarding house each weekend. I casually introduced him as my boyfriend Seamus when he dropped by the compound to say hello one day, and Madam surprised us in the kitchen. He became buddies with the Secret Service guys, who liked him so much they offered him free use of an empty bed in one of their hotel rooms. Seamus was glad to move out of the boarding house, since the landlady was always banging on his door at night, demanding to know if I was in there. I wasn't. It was the first of many summers for Seamus at the Cape, but far from a typical one. There was a tense mood hanging over the compound, and the press was swarming outside the gates like hungry locusts. It wasn't just Jackie O they were after, though. Teddy was in their crosshairs now, under a cloud of suspicion after the terrible death of a young woman who had once worked on Bobby's campaign staff. Oh, yes. I didn't know Mary Jo Kopechny, but she was one of the bright-eyed young people who were perpetually in the orbit of the senators, first Bobby, now Teddy. There had been a reunion party on Chappaquiddick Island off Martha's Vineyard for the girls who had worked the phones for Bobby's campaign, and Teddy later told investigators he had offered Mary Jo a ride to catch her ferry that night. After making a wrong turn onto an unlit road, his car had plunged off a dark, narrow bridge and sunk in a tidal canal. Teddy had freed himself from the driver's seat, but Mary Jo drowned. Teddy didn't report the accident until the next morning. A week later, he pleaded guilty to leaving the scene. Yeah, well, he was drunk, first of all, and the car was only in 3 feet of water, and he didn't even attempt to get her out. And she could have lived. She was actually in an air pocket. And I don't think she drowned, she suffocated. Because he left her. And he didn't go to the police. He went back to the party. Idiot. And there were all these houses along the way that he could have stopped at, and he didn't. He went all the way. Anyway, that just... Teddy Kennedy. I hated to see the Kennedy family facing yet more tribulation. I felt sorriest for Joan, my favorite of Madame's sisters-in-law. Joan was as nice as she was beautiful, and that was saying a lot, since she could pass for a model, with her high cheekbones and wavy blonde hair. Now the public that held the Kennedy brothers in such high esteem was vilifying her husband, and questioning the nature of his relationship with the poor girl who died. It seemed like the Kennedy women, Rose, Madame Ethel, now Joan, were doomed to live out their private tragedies in the glare of the public spotlight, each in turn becoming masters at presenting a brave face when their hearts had to be breaking. What with Jack's widow now remarried and leaving the fold, Bobby gone a year, and the last Kennedy brother now tarnished by scandal, it wasn't a summer of bonfire galas on the beach that year for the clan. I was relieved when it was time to leave for Ireland. I was even more relieved when I got back and learned a new governess had at last been hired. Marta's arrival would surely free up my evenings to go out with Seamus, or just hang out with our friends back at my apartment. Madame had been royally irked when she finally learned of my little bachelorette pad with Bridie a good year or more after we'd first rented it. I hadn't planned on telling her at all, but as I was getting ready to head there one evening after my day's work was done, I chanced to overhear Madame talking with Caroline in the living room. "Why don't you go ask Kath?" I heard her suggest. I hurried to the back elevator and frantically mashed the button, hoping I could still make my escape. The door opened just as Caroline's voice wafted down the hall, calling my name. "I think someone wants you," the elevator man said. "Just go, go," I urged him. The door slid shut, and I was free for a few delicious hours at least. The next morning, Madame confronted me. "Where were you last night?" she demanded testily. "Caroline was looking for you." "Oh, I went out," I answered vaguely. Arguing that I wasn't on the clock would have been pointless. There wasn't such a thing as my time in her world, just her time bestowed on me when it best suited her. I had lost count long ago of the number of weekends off that had been appropriated without apology or compensation. I could feel my resentment rising as she pressed on about my disappearance the night before. "Well, I don't want you just leaving without coming to me first and telling me where you're going," she said. "I was going home to my apartment." "What do you mean, an apartment? With who?" "With Bridie." "The Smith's girl?" I nodded. If I was going down, so was Bridie. "But why do you need an apartment?" Madame pressed. "Just to have a place to relax and have friends over," I explained. I didn't add that I was tired of having to stay out window shopping and spending my money eating in diners or buying movie tickets to kill time on my day off, because I knew the second I walked back through the door at 10:40 that time no longer belonged to me. Madame's face softened. "Oh, but this is your home," she cried. "You're welcome to bring your friends back here." "And do what?" I thought bitterly. "My friends don't want to come here and sit in my little flowered room." Madame had no choice but to let the matter drop. I was still sleeping most nights in the pink field of posies anyway. Nothing had really changed for her. I was still Jackie's girl. But I could tell that this glimpse of my ever-so-slight independence had come as a shock, and that she wasn't happy about it. Certainty was her security blanket, and it was how she kept her big, busy life running smoothly. And certainty required control. She was more possessive than... I'm not good at this word. Dictatorial. Though. People who worked for her tended to stay for years, and, like Pravi, would then stay on call for years more, even after quitting or retiring. Madame took these professional relationships very personally and, more often than not, returned the loyalty we gave her tenfold. The new governess, Marta, proved a delightful breath of fresh air. She had spent her childhood in Italy before ending up in France, caring for a diplomat's children, and she'd even studied acting in Paris for a while. Right away, she got the children busy working on a special Christmas play for their mother. Marta was such a perfect fit that the revolving nanny door was finally shut for good, which was a great relief for me. Having her in place meant Seamus and I could enjoy a courtship that was as close to normal as I was likely to get. Shopping for a gift that Christmas, I splurged on a gold watch that set me back nearly 3 paychecks and had his name engraved on the back. Seamus presented me with a clock radio so I could listen to music on my trip back to Greece with the family over the holidays. Maybe not as romantic a gift as I might have liked, but I couldn't fault him for the practicality, even if all it picked up on on the Christina was static. By the following spring, though, Seamus and I were starting to wander into jewelry stores on Madison Avenue to just look at engagement rings. And soon enough, Madame landed on the perfect way to keep a short leash on me that summer in the Cape. She invited Seamus to move in. Seamus would come up on his own for a weekend now, or a few days at a time. Just like the year before, renting a room in town. The more time he spent on the compound, the more quickly he blended into the backstage life of the Kennedy summer, making himself useful wherever he happened to be. Seamus was learning the building trade back in the city. If a drain plugged up or a door hinge or some other small thing needed quick repair, Seamus would often pitch in and get it done, easier than waiting on old Wilmer or his young helper Arthur, who turned into a bumbling nervous wreck whenever Madame was around anyway. What really cinched the deal between Seamus and the Kennedys, though, was sports. While still a teenager in Ireland, Seamus had gotten himself noticed as a rising star in the soccer leagues. He was strong as an ox thanks to his daily training regimen, and he had earned a reputation for playing hard and taking no prisoners. His iron muscles weren't sculpted in any gym, though. They came from menial labor. You know, I always say, like, a man who is muscular because of his work is so much more attractive than a man who is muscular because he goes to the gym. It's a different body type. Do you know what I mean? Like, I once knew a guy who was very fit because he rock climbed so much, and it was a different type of fitness than a gym fitness. Like, he was a hard body for sure, but it's like practical muscle. You know, like gym muscle can be very like just like big and bulky, and that's not practical muscle. You know what I mean? Like, that's not the kind of muscle that has endurance, you know, like usually endurance type of muscle is long and lean. And that's the kind of muscle you get from like doing the same type, like repetitive actions that require like your strength. Anyway, it's cute reading this because I can tell that like all these years later, she's still like a little swoony over her husband's physique back in the day. Every day, Seamus would ride his bicycle to work, his office being a mountain in County Leitrim, where he grew up. He would pedal halfway up, then hide his bike in some bushes and climb the rest of the way by foot, lugging a backpack filled with food and water to the peak. There, tons of peat moss lay spread out and drying in the sun. His job was to haul the turf to the side of the dirt road to be loaded onto a wagon drawn by either horse or tractor and taken back down the mountain to be burned as fuel. Turf was the Irish version of coal, used to heat the thousands of homes too old or too poor to have electricity or gas furnaces. That was that healthier than coal? Because, you know, coal caused a lot of problems for people's breathing and things like that. Opponents on the soccer field would try to get under Seamus's skin by taunting him about how low class his job was on the bog, only to find out the hard way how fierce his pride was. At the Cape, Seamus had flashbacks to the bog taunters when he noticed John getting bullied by his older cousins during the free-for-all football games on the lawn. John was still a few years away from the growth spurt, which would transform him from scrawny to strapping practically overnight. Until then, John was the easiest one to make or break the family code of honor. Kennedys don't cry. There were always adults as well as kids playing in the football matches, Secret Service men, Suck-Up Sandy, even former pro football star Roosevelt Grier. Is it Grier or Grier? I don't know. When he was a house guest. John had taken a liking to Seamus and asked him to come be on his team one day when the game was starting up. Seamus had never played American football, much less touch football. Oh my Lord, dropping my phone. Much less touch football, and had no idea what the rules were, but he agreed to jump in the match anyway. The teams were always divided into two sides, the skins and the shirts. The skins played bare-chested. Seamus and John were on the shirts. She's probably like, darn. The skins, by Seamus's account later, were rife with cheaters who would deny they'd been tagged, even when Seamus presented the forensic evidence. Look, my hands are clammy with his sweat. One particular Kennedy teenager kept pretending John had never touched him, which set John to whining. Seamus pulled him aside. I know, I see what he's doing. Seamus assured him. Don't worry about it, just keep playing. The cheater was locked into Seamus's radar, though, and the next time he got the ball and took off running, it was Seamus, not John, planted in his path. With no time to put on the brakes, the skin plowed full bore into Seamus and went down hard. The game broke up with the teen, not John, struggling to keep the Kennedy code. Seamus limped back to the house on a twisted ankle. I found him sitting on the counter with his feet in the kitchen sink, which he had filled with cold water in hopes of bringing the swelling down. John was jumping around with excitement over the smackdown. "Seamus, what do you think you're doing? You can't be sticking your feet in Madam's sink," I cried. The words had no sooner left my mouth than the kitchen door swung open and Madam herself walked in. "What's all the excitement?" she asked as Seamus hurried to pull the plug on his foot spa. "Mum, you should have seen Seamus just now," John crowed. He proceeded to provide the color commentary of how the avenging shirt vanquished the enemy's skin, putting on an exaggerated brogue to deliver the closing line over the whimpering cousin. "I wanted to leave no doubt that you were touched this time." We all cracked up at John's comic reenactment. Seamus's ankle was turning purple and looked like an overinflated football itself. "Let me see," Madam said, with the same motherly concern I heard in her voice whenever John or Caroline got a bump or scrape. "Oh, poor thing, he's all black and blue. Get him some ice." She retrieved a bag of frozen vegetables from the freezer and applied it to Seamus's foot as an ice pack. When she left and I was sure she was out of earshot, I asked Seamus which cousin he'd taken out. "I don't know his name," he said. "What did he look like?" I asked. "Big hair and big teeth." "Well, that only describes every one of them," I pointed out. A few days later, Madam left one of her handwritten notes for me. This one wasn't asking if there was a dead rat in the pantry, though, or reminding me to make John his summer reading done, or reminding me to make John get his summer reading done. It was telling me that Seamus was welcome to stay at the house whenever he came up to the Cape. It went without saying that she meant in one of the guest rooms, not mine. But there was no need to worry about hanky-panky. The first time Seamus tapped on my door to wish me a good night, he asked if he could have a kiss. I granted permission, but a warning growl from under my bed made it clear that Shannon most definitely had not. If I got up to go to Seamus's room or kiss him goodnight instead, Shannon would either follow me to growl at him or stay behind in my room and start baying to wake up the whole house. Quite the little chaperone. The carpentry job Seamus had landed that year was on a big project down in the financial district, where he was on a crew helping build two skyscrapers side by side. The twin towers of the World Trade Center were going to soar 110 stories into the sky, making them among the tallest on Earth. Oh, wow. Man, she really was like in the center of everything, wasn't she? That's incredible. It felt like Seamus and I were on the verge of building something grand, too. It all nearly came crashing down in a single weekend, all because Madam wanted to go horseback riding. We were all back in New York. Onassis was in town, but when the weather turned crisp and the leaves started to turn, it was the countryside and her horses that always beckoned Madam. Fall was high season among the socialites in hunt country, when jodhpurs and... I just realized that jodhpurs is an Indian word, just by the spelling of it. When jodhpurs and a red velvet blazer and peapack replaced Fifth Avenue in Valentino gowns. Madam was making plans to head to New Jersey with the kids for the weekend, letting her husband stay behind to have 1040 to himself. There'd never been any trouble before with this arrangement, but this time Mr. Onassis insisted that Marta stay behind too. The reason given was that he was having a luncheon and liked her cooking. Marta was, in fact, a very good amateur cook. She enjoyed puttering around in the kitchen and often watched the Christina chefs and sous chefs at work. But Marta was the governess, and the children were going with Madam, so that meant Marta would go with Madam. Hoping to appease her husband, Madam told me to come to Peapack instead, to care for John and Caroline. Was he having an affair with the governess? That's like right where my brain went. I'd be like, "Excuse me, why do you want this young Italian girl? You can bring in your own chef." I don't think so. Anyway. Hoping to appease her husband, Madam told me to come to Peapack instead to care for John and Caroline. "But I'm not the governess," I anxiously reminded her. I was supposed to be off that night, and Seamus had bought us tickets to a Johnny Cash concert. They'd cost him $40 apiece. It didn't matter. Onassis wouldn't budge, and Madam's plans mattered more than mine. Seamus was still on the Trade Center construction site when we left that afternoon, and I couldn't reach him until just a couple hours before the concert. He was furious. Why hadn't I just said no? Had I even stopped to consider him? We'd been planning this night for a long time. It was too late to get a refund on the tickets. Why did I wait until now to tell him? Was it always going to be like this, playing second fiddle to the whims of Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis? I mean, I'd be ticked off too. That wasn't the way he wanted to live his life, and if it was how I planned to spend the rest of mine, I was going to have to do it without him. I'm sorry, I can't help it, I kept blubbering as he ranted on the other end of the phone line. I was beside myself. I'd never heard Seamus so angry. He was dead serious. We were breaking up. Oh, was he expecting me to choose between my livelihood and my love life? I was in an impossible position. I sobbed even louder. Suddenly, Madam was beside me in the hallway, gesturing for me to hand her the phone. Crying and unable to get a word edgewise with Seamus anyway, I gave it to her. "Seamus, it's me," she said in her breathiest voice. "Please, it's all my fault. I'm so sorry. It wasn't Kathy's fault at all. She didn't know until the last minute." I could only imagine how dumbfounded Seamus must have been as he mumbled some polite reassurances and ended the conversation as quickly as he could. He went to the concert alone, the seat next to him empty. We patched things up, but a line had been drawn. Jackie's girl or Seamus's, and sooner or later, I knew, I would have to make a difficult choice. I loved them both in much different ways, but if I ever wanted to have a family of my own, I would have to loosen the ties to this powerful one that had claimed me 6 years before. 6 years? As 1970 drew to a close and Christmas approached, my sister and girlfriends all began speculating that this was the year I would get the diamond ring. It had to be. I felt a tingle of anticipation and allowed myself to fantasize about Seamus handing me a telltale little square box from the jeweler. I had just turned 26, and if I was ever going to have a husband and family of my own, it had better be soon. The box Seamus handed me on Christmas Eve was large and flat. Something bulky and heavy was inside. I pasted a false smile on my face as I unwrapped it. Seamus hovered over me, grinning like the village Egypt. He was proud of himself, whatever it was. This was going to be the plastic clock radio all over again. I could feel it. I broke the seal over the delicate tissue paper inside the too big box and pulled out a raincoat. Not just any raincoat. A gorgeous cream-colored designer raincoat Seamus had seen me try on and fall in love with one afternoon when we were browsing through the racks at Bergdorf. I was going to say Bergdorf. Bergdorf Goodman's. For fun. It was an extravagant gift, and I knew it had cost Seamus dearly. I thanked him, trying my hardest not to burst into tears of disappointment. "Put it on, let's see," he urged me. I pulled my arms through the sleeves and looked for the belt to cinch my waist. It wasn't in the box. "Seamus, didn't it come with a belt?" I asked. "Oh, right," he said. "The sales lady put it in the pocket so it wouldn't get lost." The coat was so stiff and heavy, I hadn't even felt it. I pulled out the belt, rolled up in a tight ball. It unfurled to reveal a tiny square box at its core. Inside was my engagement ring. Yay! Oh. I think there's a picture. Oh, he really was balding. Oh, he must not have wanted to show his face. Oh, there he is. Oh my gosh, he's like 3 years younger than her, but he looks 10 years older. Okay, I'll see if, I don't know if the camera will pick it up. I'll try my best. Oh dear. Let's see if I can. I'm sorry. It's awfully blurry. That seems to be the best I can get. Okay, well, we will stop there. I need to go have a bite to eat. I'm starved. All right. Thank you so much for being with me, and I hope you've enjoyed this chapter as much as I have, and I will see you very soon, probably tomorrow morning. All right, talk to you soon.